You are tuned in to Life After the Game with your host, Lamar Campbell. If you wish to ask a question of Lamar or his guest, please call 1-888-346-9144. That's 1-888-346-9144. Or you can send an email to lamar@lifeafterthegame.com. Now, back to our program.
Welcome back to Life After the Game. I'm your host, Lamar Campbell. The same is brought to you by Voice America Sports with over 2 million listeners worldwide. Be sure to download the Voice America app for iTunes or your iPad. That's right, Voice America Sports. There's an app for that. You can call, so you can listen anytime to Life After the Game. Make sure you give us a call in today at 1-888-346-9144. Shoot me a tweet on Twitter at LifeAfterTGame or email your questions into Lamar@lifeafterthegame.com. For our second segment, we have the pleasure of having NBA champion and former Chicago Bull, Trent Tucker, on the line with us today. Trent, thank you so much for joining us on Life After the Game.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Oh, it's awesome. And now, for people that don't know, I'm a former Detroit Lion, if you're just tuning in for the show for the first time. But my friend, Mr. Trent Tucker, is a true Flintstone out of Michigan. So it's a lot of love, a lot of love there for the Flintstones. However, let me say, as a Badger, thank you for inviting us up to Minneapolis this weekend so we can beat up on the Minnesota Golden Gophers and keep the Paul Bunyan axe. Thank you very much. Thank you for playing. We enjoyed your town as always on a beautiful weekend.
Hey, I must say this. I will say this. You guys have a very, very good team, and you're about 2 plays away from having a chance to make it.
Indeed, touche, Trent. Well, let's talk a little bit about. You had a great NBA career. You just did some awesome things. You have an NBA championship ring. Tell us a little bit what it was like for you to transition from an NBA champion into where you are now as you're on the radio up there at KFan 100.3 on every Saturday morning, but you're doing some great things with your foundation as well. You can tell our listeners out there, tell us a little bit about that transition for you.
Well, anytime you leave an industry that you have been in for a very long time, it's always tough for players to leave and to move into something different. But I began, to begin to make that transition in my last 3 or 4 years. I knew that once I signed my last contract and I was playing my last few years in Chicago, I knew that the end was near. So it was time for me to begin to look to do something that I had passion, that I could put energy and effort into, and that's when I got into the nonprofit world, especially working with middle school kids, promoting early college awareness and getting them to understand the importance of academics today, because if they put themselves on the right track today, it's going to give them a great chance tomorrow.
I couldn't agree with you more, Trent. You're just tuning in. I'm on with Trent Tucker. Give us a call at 1-888-346-9144. Tell us what it was like in the locker room when you play with the likes of a Michael Jordan and you play with a Scottie Pippen and you're the three-point specialist. I mean, you were out there waiting to just nail it down. And you're one of the most prolific, three-point shooters in the history of the NBA. Tell us a little bit about that championship run that you had with the Bulls.
Well, is the expectations are high every night you go out to play, because when you go into a different arena, everyone is expected to see a great performance from a championship-type team. But as a role player, a guy who's playing with great players like that, there's a great deal of pressure on the role players to perform at the things they were brought to the team to do. Me being an outside shooter, when they broke down the defense and with their penetration, I had to be able to knock down those open jump shots. But just being around, that mentality on a daily basis, and how hard those guys worked on a daily basis to get themselves prepared, to win championships was a wonderful place to be.
I can only imagine, and it takes, sometimes you have to, and I truly believe you have to learn how to win.
Right.
I think a lot of times that guys don't know how to win, and when a lot of times when you hear people say that, it's a humbleness that comes with that as well. Like, you take the win and you move on to the next game. You continue to work even harder. You continue to prepare even harder, but it becomes an expectation when you prepare yourself in that way. And I think that's something that you've made a great transition with your Trent Tucker All for Kids Foundation, that you're teaching these kids how to win in life.
Yeah, and that's the most important thing, is putting yourself in good positions to be successful. And I think, the winning attitude or the winning formula comes from being well prepared. And when you're prepared to get the job done, you can do some good things here and there.
Well, I think you're doing some awesome things, not just here and there. Now, for all our listeners, Trent has a plethora of accomplishments, and I'm just going to run through a couple of them. He was an NBA first-round draft pick in 1982. You have a world championship title in '93. You've done color commentating for the Big Ten Network and also the Minnesota Timberwolves. You have the Breakthrough Spirit Award for Children's Cancer and Blood Foundation in 2010. But what I want all my young listeners and all my athletes out there, Bachelor of Science, Psychology of Communication, 2007, University of Minneapolis. All about education. Kids, if you're listening, it's all about education. There is no life after the game. There is no life, period, if you don't have your education. And I see that's something that you focus on tremendously, Trent. Tell us about some of the success stories that's come out of the All for Kids Foundation.
Well, over the last, 10 to 12 years, when I first started this program and I did my research, and I looked at the age group that was lacking the most in terms of people being in place to provide resources for them. In that 6th, 7th, and 8th grade group, that's where there were a ton of kids who were left with nowhere to go. And I just felt like that if we could make an impact, it could be on this group. This spring, we're going to have our first set of college graduates who started with us about 10 years ago.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. That's going to be an awesome event. Awesome. If you said it's 10 of them.
Yeah, the first coming out to our first set of college graduates who's going to graduate this spring.
Oh, that's just awesome. I know I can hear how proud you are in your voice, Trent. I mean, that's just an awesome accomplishment. For all our listeners who just tuning in, I'm on with Trent Tucker. Check out his foundation page, All for Kids Foundation, at allforkidsfoundation.org. Again, that's allforkidsfoundation.org. Now, Trent, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you a couple of questions about the NBA lockout and what your feelings are. Tell us a little bit about what you think is really going on behind those closed doors of negotiations in the NBA lockout.
Well, it's both sides trying to gain every edge that they can. And anytime you go into negotiations, somebody has to be willing to lose something to make it right for the other side to have a chance to agree upon something. But right now it seems like that both of these sides cannot come together. The players have taken a hard stance and saying what the owners are offering them is not good enough, not only for the players of today, but for the players of tomorrow. And listening to David Stern this afternoon talk about the players making a huge mistake by not accepting this deal.
And I have a nickname for David Stern. I was actually in the NFL, and when David Stern had the rule that guys had to get dressed to come to the games and dress in suits, and I was really good friends with a lot of Pistons players, Richard Hamilton and Mateen Cleaves. Another Flintstone was there at the time, and I used to tease those guys, and I used to call David Stern Big Brother from 1984. And kind of put a foul taste in a lot of guys' mouth, although I did understand where he was coming from. I think the way that he went about it rubbed a lot of guys the wrong way. I do not know if you've met David Stern personally or not, but I think the public perception is that he's not the best guy around. Is it just a business thing with David Stern, or does that go to his ego and personality as well with these negotiations?
It's pretty much a business thing, and also it's the representation of his business. And if you've been in the game for a long time, or if you work for, a major corporation, you can kind of understand where he's coming from when he talk about, how you should approach your attire from a business standpoint. Because when you go into a corporate setting, there's a certain way that you have to dress and present yourself. And I think he was coming from that standpoint. But like you said, I don't think he was able to present what he was trying to get off to the players the right way.
Right, and I have to go ahead and agree with you with that. I mean, at 23, 24 years old, yes, David Stern's big brother. I can't believe he's making you guys wear suits. But after grad school and I'm walking into business opportunities and rubbing elbows with business-minded men, I'm three-piece suited, fresh pair of shoes on. And it's just a different aspect, and I understand the business aspect of it now. So I think guys over time came to respect that. And I think one of the things that came out of the NFL lockout this year is that guys understood now it is a business.
It is a business.
It is a stone cold business. And I think that's the lesson that a lot of guys took out of the NFL lockout. And hopefully we can have NBA on Christmas, which for me is when the NBA season really starts. And I love Christmas Story, 24 hours of a Christmas story, just like the next man. But I always look forward to those NBA Christmas Day games. And so I'm really looking forward to the NBA. I hope these guys can get something worked out. I hope they can meet each other halfway and get this taken care of, because I think at first, when football's over, now what? And I think we definitely need basketball coming off such a tremendous season with so many young teams coming up in the NBA last year. I mean, I thought they would have built – I thought their main goal would have been to build on that momentum that they had last year in the playoffs.
Well, it's sad to see that basketball is not playing at this stage because all the things you just talked about, they had a great season. So many young teams all of a sudden now making a move. You know, no one thought that the Memphis Grizzlies could make a run,
Right.
you know, to the Western Conference semifinal. No one thought Oklahoma City, after a few years of being in Oklahoma City, you know, could come a few games away from playing for an NBA championship. Who gave Dallas a chance to beat the dream team from Miami? So it was a fun playoff run, and it's very, very sad to see that basketball right now has been closed for business.
We got about 3 minutes left. Trent. We got a couple emails coming in from a couple Flintstones.
All right.
And say shout out to the Flintstone. Max from Flint just sent us an email. It said, Trent, in college and in the NBA, the toughest man you had to guard in your career, both collegiate and professionally.
In college, I would say that the toughest matchup that I ever had was Andrew Toney.
Andrew Toney, wow. Okay.
And, you know, Andrew Toney at the time, he was at Southwest Louisiana State. I mean, you know, when they came up to play us in Minnesota, I mean, you know, he was a guy that the night before had scored like 40-plus points, and he was a very, very tough guy to deal with. And at the NBA level, you all know if you played in the backcourt and you played in the era of Michael Jordan, you know, he was the most difficult guy for anyone to deal with.
Right. I think I would have to go ahead and agree with that. Let me ask you this. Did you check Mike J at practice?
I did. You know,
did you get it?
You know, and you had to have a lot of help also.
I asked everybody that ever played against MJ, and I'm going to ask you also, Trent. Did you get a chance to duck on Mike in practice?
No, you know, you had to run him off screen so you could try to wear him down and have your big guys set some good screens for you so you can get some open jump shots and make him work from that standpoint.
Oh, that's awesome. We got about 2 minutes left. Got one more question coming in. Actually, someone from Minneapolis is calling in. Emailing in. Stacy from Minneapolis calling in wants to know how can she be a part of your foundation, the Trent Tucker All for Kids Foundation. What information?
Repeat that question again to hear it.
Oh, I'm sorry. She wants to know how can she become a part of your foundation.
Well, she can go online and she can check out the foundation, and we have a phone number that she can call, and we would love to sit down and talk to her to see how she'd love to get involved.
Awesome. And also, you can also visit www.lifeafterthegame, and I'll also have all Trent's contact information as far as the foundation there as well. And also, feel free to replay the show on your iPod or your podcast whenever you're ready. Trent, thank you so much for joining us today. You are doing awesome things in Minneapolis. We appreciate you as former players. We appreciate you in the community. Thank you so much for everything that you're doing.
All right, man. Thanks for having me.